right, everybody. Hi, Social Media Week. I just want to bring your attention, before we get into the normal presentation today, I want to bring your attention to some information that I posted up in the class website. So let me get that live in front of you here. So this is in the weekly content, and so what I've done, I've gone ahead and I've put in the social, the video, and the week 11, the project due. I don't have the stuff for weeks 12, 13, and 14, but I've also got an update here. If you didn't watch this update, I posted this on Saturday. Video that walks you through where we're at, including what you need to be doing for the final project. Links for the final project to the template are in there, as are there's two projects from previous semesters that were very well done, so you'll get an idea. We've changed the template because we've added social and video have become more prominent in the last year, so we've added those to the audit. And so it won't be exactly the same as what they did, but the idea of what we're looking for, where you're using data to tell the story, and you're also, it's important that you're going to be, in your report, you're going to be educating your partner organizations because they don't know the vocabulary that you're using. So one of the things that I'll look for when I'm going through your projects is I'm going to be looking for you using that opportunity to educate them about, don't just throw out terms without explaining to them what it means, why it's important, that kind of stuff. So that's what I wanted to show you. And so that is all that I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to get rid of that. Hi, Carrie, how's your lunch?
Oh, I'm on Central Time because it's my dinner. Thanks, though.
We can't hear your audio.
All right, I'll work on that.
Still can't. I'm wondering if it's our side.
Your computer is muted.
Oh, there he's unmuted now.
Yeah, no, it's
This
unmuted.
is muted, but it shouldn't be muted on that side. Does anybody else out there have a speaker or a microphone that can talk to us just to make sure that it's not Carrie's problem?
Somebody else can hear him.
Nope, I can hear
You
him.
can hear him? Well,
I can hear
him. Let's try it again.
All right, how about now?
No, not cool.
I can hear him fine.
You guys can hear us. I'll work on the audio.
Okay.
And let you get started. So, Casey Hall, take it from there, and I'll play with the technology.
All right. Do you have my?
Okay, I'll go ahead and start presenting your slide deck.
Do you have a clicker?
No, you can tell me.
Okay, I'll just point to you. What I want to think. All right, everybody. Thanks for coming. I know that there are some competition for everyone's attention this evening for the election, so I appreciate everybody being here. But I think Kevin's going to keep an eye on the election results. So if anything comes up, otherwise I encourage you all to go on Twitter and just keep an eye on it during class. The other thing that I was going to encourage people to do is, if you are on Twitter, go to the UW Stout Social hashtag, and instead of taking notes on your computer, maybe try taking notes on Twitter. It's something I do at conferences a lot, and it allows people to kind of be active in a conversation. So you all know how to use a hashtag on Twitter? How to look up a hashtag? Okay, so if you're interested during class, I posted a couple tweets up there to get people started. I just find it's an interesting way to use social media. So a little bit about myself. My background is not in digital marketing and communications, or my education isn't in any way. Went to undergrad for political science, then worked at a law firm for a few years, and went to law school, and then practiced law briefly, and went then to work for Thomson Reuters. I started out as a research attorney, and in that capacity, I decided to start a legal research blog. And as I got more and more interested in doing that, got more interested in social media, and this was like 2008 or 2009, so it was kind of new. And that little side project of mine became my full-time job and career. So then I went to work with our fine law business, where most of the other Thomson Reuters people are from, doing digital marketing for law firms. And then moved over to the rest of the business and did social media marketing, and now I'm in communications, leading social media. So kind of a circuitous path, and there wasn't really classes like this way back in the day when I was in college, as far as digital marketing went. And I think this class is awesome. I've been talking to some of our vendors and other people who work in the digital marketing communications area a lot. And this is, maybe not one of a kind, but almost anyway, in terms of what you guys are doing here. So I think you'll be really well positioned, and you could have to kind of look for opportunities out there. So I'm going to go to the next slide. So like in general, in your lives, how many of you guys are just active in social media generally? A little bit? Anybody? All right, you get a set of headphones for being like the most active with like being a little bit active. So you guys don't use social media at all? No Twitter, no Facebook, no LinkedIn, no Snapchat. All right.
I use Facebook for messaging, honestly.
Okay, Facebook and messaging, yeah.
I'm an admin on a couple pages.
Well, there you go. So you're in there. The rest of you just a little bit or not too much. That's all right. I think that particularly smaller companies, when they're looking for people to do social media, a lot of times the thinking is, well, I'm going to get a millennial who is all over Snapchat and have them come run our company page. Not to say that that's not a good background to get into social media with, but it's a very different set of skills, like what you would use social media for as for your own sort of personal purposes, versus what you might use it for as a marketing communications professional. So this makes my next question a little bit less relevant if you want to move ahead. I was going to ask you, why you're on social media, but considering that most of you aren't, it makes it a little bit silly. But I think that most of the reasons that we're on social media personally are really to interact with friends, share pictures, talk about the kind of cool stuff that we're doing in our lives, follow election results. I use Twitter pretty well because it's my job, but also personally, just all the time to kind of keep up with the news and see what's going on. I interact with people who I would really never have a chance to interact with in real life, like people who kind of have high profile sometimes, or just are far flung, or have a different sort of life and skill circle than I do. So that's why I use it personally. If you go to the next slide. I don't think a lot of people are on social media for the purpose of following brands and companies, right? So we have all these branded channels, Thomson Reuters and other companies. And we put out thought leadership, we put out special events, maybe we have a big sale. And it's effective, and we can kind of measure that in a lot of different ways using analytics. But for the most part, unless you can really do something cool with your company and brand that speaks to what those people are interested in, it's tough sometimes to get a lot of traction for a branded channel. So building a branded channel is not always as easy as your clients and companies probably wish it was. When you look at your number of followers, it's going to be 50, 100, or whatever for a long time before we start to get some numbers that are kind of impressive to people. And there's a lot of things that people do to try to just build up their follower numbers when they get started, because it seems like, all right, we're on Twitter, we need to have a lot of followers. And it's not that you shouldn't have a lot of followers, but that doesn't necessarily need to be your goal. I think when you look at the other types of engagement, you can engage with people who maybe aren't even following you. You can take part in hashtag conversations. And there's other ways to measure beyond that follower number. I think that some people get so focused on what that follower number is, getting followers that aren't really of high value to sort of your customers. Another quick question. Anybody notice anything odd about a couple of those brands up there?
I think
Hooli and Pied Piper are Nautical brands. Just gotta put them up there for fun. All right, go ahead. So I know that you guys probably having mixed results working with your partners and the companies and the businesses that you're working with. Have any of you gotten to a point where you are actually have social media accounts set up for your businesses?
I do.
Here's what's for you. Here's what's for you. Also, very good catches. So how did that go? How did that go setting them up? When you were talking to them, did you guys talk about what your goals were for social media, or was it just kind of like, all right, we're gonna get some stuff started because there's nothing going on yet?
Well, my company or the business already had a bit.
Okay.
Kind of worked out more goals that we could achieve than like what this year what they could achieve with Facebook. So.
What kind of business was it?
It's a local bar.
Oh,
So,
nice.
What he started doing is you can live stream on Facebook now. So they have like local entertainment production live stream that send it out to all of his followers.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great use. I think when you think about something like a bar, Facebook is perfect. People check in, share that kind of stuff. You know, and you can even do, if they wanted to spend a little bit of money, you can do like location-based targeting for some ads and things, so you're actually getting people right around here. So I think that's a really good use, and that makes a lot of sense. It's nice. Anybody else have any experience so far? Anybody?
I do.
Okay.
They have it. They don't really know their purpose yet.
Yeah.
So we're working on that.
What kind of company is it?
It's a brewery.
Oh, that seems like there's all kinds of opportunities for a brewery.
Yeah. So they're not reaching all the opportunities they want to reach yet.
Yeah.
Like hosting, maybe, for an example, in October they could have done a corn maze. Like they have places to host like family friendly events that just aren't focused on drinking and all that.
Yeah.
And they're missing that. I think that's his main focus we're finally deciding on is more event type things to drive people in.
Yeah.
But they have to create those and think of things
Yeah.
so they don't really. No,
Right.
I think they're just trying to build their brand on Facebook so they've had a presence on it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look outdated and old fashioned.
Right. I think sometimes people think about starting with social media development, that can be like a tough thing to do. If you don't have the rest of that content, website, events, and all that kind of stuff, just do social media and that may work. If you look at the Surly Brewery in Minneapolis, they're doing some cool stuff. Like they had a new beer that just came out called Darkness. It's a Russian imperial stout, I think. Very dark, obviously. And they had just like really cool, like they had like a black, there's like black image square and like darkness is coming and stuff. So just like some cool things that brewers are doing, I think.
Yeah, and I know some of them, the owner's really looking at a lot of how the Minneapolis area, St. Paul area is marketing on social media.
Right.
He's a little envious of it, but he's struggling with what he wants to focus on before he can even do that.
Yeah.
Because he kind of showed me, he's like, I want everything to be like this.
Right.
And which is good, then I can kind of visualize kind of what he wants.
Yeah.
But then it went more back to him to be like, okay, you need to think of your goals before you can have things.
Yeah, that can be a tough conversation. Well, it sounds like he's excited about it, so that's like.
Yeah, he is excited.
Especially with all the tap rooms in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
It's really getting kind of cool. We have the same thing sometimes. So Thomson Reuters is a company that does a lot of kind of professional, financial, legal kind of stuff. So you guys probably heard of Bloomberg. It's one of our main competitors. And we have this like financial trading terminal, and its main competitors is Bloomberg trading terminal. And the other day they tweeted out a picture of Bon Jovi. Bloomberg did. Like tweeted out a picture of Bon Jovi at one of their trading terminals. Like, oh, here's Bon Jovi at a Bloomberg trading terminal. I have no idea what it had to do with anything. Like why Bon Jovi was at a Bloomberg trading terminal, but it was awesome. They got like all these retweets and stuff. And then my email inbox was just flooded. Like, how come we don't have Bon Jovi? It's like, why? I don't know why we don't have Bon Jovi. Right. That's one of the things that can come up a lot. Is like people are like, oh, they're doing that cool stuff. Why aren't we doing? It's like, well, is that really our strategy? Get Bon Jovi in front of like one of our products and take a picture? I mean, we could do that. Maybe it would be fun. So I don't know. That comes up a lot with people. Like, why aren't we doing cool things And I think to combat that is exactly what you were saying, is lower goals. Are we trying to build community, or are we trying to let people know about a discount that's going on, or whatever we use to build a brand? So I think having that set up is why your company is on social media. So I think that's actually the next one, just says why. How close. And so how we're doing this. That's what I talked about. You can go to the next slide. So when we look at social media, and this was the topics of the 5 YouTube videos that were put out there. And when you think about what I do most of my day, or what a social media marketing manager does primarily most of the day, my role is a little bit different now that I'm in communications. But it's the managing the accounts. What kind of content do you put out there? Obviously, visual content is great. Things that can get people to share, like all those sorts of things. But having an editorial calendar and actually having a plan for how you're going to use an event to really leverage social media. How often you should post. If you can have just a nice one-page PDF you can share with your company, like, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do 3 posts a week. One of those posts is going to be talking about the Friday sale. One of those posts is going to be sharing the live video from the band. One of those posts is going to be doing this. It will give your clients a really good sense of, oh, they're not just like messing around on Twitter. Like this is part of the business plan that makes sense. So even if those are the things that you're doing anyway, I think figuring out how to communicate that can be almost as important as what that strategy is, which is unfortunate in some ways. But that's such a big part of working in social media, is kind of always proving the value of what you're doing. So managing the accounts kind of goes a little bit beyond figuring out actually what are you going to do, but also how you're going to tell that story and buy-in from the people you're working with. And publishing content on a day-to-day basis, particularly, I don't know if for any of your businesses it makes sense to try to newsjack the election, right? So if there's something going on where you can kind of jump into the conversation, if there's Oktoberfest going on for either of you guys, kinds of things. There's ways that you can sort of be in the moment and take advantage of some of those things that are going on when you're publishing content. Has anyone done any social listening or thought about social listening at all, or know what social listening is? Okay. So social listening is sort of this whole other side of social media marketing, where, and there's plenty of free ways to do this, and there's also some very expensive tools to do this. But basically, you can just go on Twitter and use the search and see and find out what kind of things people are talking about. So you can look for Minneapolis microbrews, or you can look for what bands are coming to town, or things like that. The other thing that I use social listening for a lot is to see what my competitors are doing. Sometimes that's just I want to know if they have a new product coming out. The nice thing to do is if your competitors, depending on what kind of business you're in, right? If it's very kind of cutthroat, if people are complaining about your competitors, that can help drive your editorial strategy. So if you see that people are complaining about, man, the logjam bar sucks because the bathrooms are always dirty. You're not working logjam. I'm sure the bathrooms are great. It's the only bar that I know in town. But it's not like you would retweet check out logjam bathrooms. They're disgusting. And you're like, hey, we have the cleanest bathrooms in town, and that's a terrible example. But you can use, figure out what people are talking about and what they dislike about your competitors to focus on the positive attributes of your company and your brand to try to bring some of those disaffected customers over to I've even had, been at hotels and had some sort of really bad check-in experience once. There was another hotel not far away, and I was like, hey, I had this terrible experience. At the Aria, is there anything you guys can do for me? And they're like, yeah, come on down. It was an incredible kind of customer service experience that I had. So social listening can be really important. Also, listening for what people are saying about your company. So particularly your own brand and the company's name, but also depending on the profile of the company, maybe the owner's name. Just seeing what people are talking about them. ideally in a positive way, so you can amplify that. But also people are saying, they're super flat as the logic. Right? Like that's not hopefully going to happen. But if it does, it's something that you're aware of and you can respond to and bring it to like the attention of either a customer service team or just directly to the owner or whoever it might be. Say, hey, here's an issue that like if people aren't happy about something, we should figure out how to address this. And what we've found a lot of times is that when people are complaining about something specific, you can turn those people around from being people who are, and some people are just going to complain or trolls, whatever. But a lot of times you can turn that into actually really positive kind of marketing and PR experience by like over delivering in your response. You know, like that hotel did or the other hotel did. Like, oh, sorry that you had a bad time. That's obviously not what we want to do. You know, come on down next Thursday night. We'll give you $20 off and 2 pictures of beer, whatever. Like, wow, that's awesome. You know, like, give us another shot, whatever it might be. And we've found that when we're able to do that, reach out directly to customers, or potential customers who have been having like a bad experience and are complaining about it, most of the time we're able to make them like turn it around, and that's wonderful. If you can like show that to your business owner and say, hey, they had a great, here's the person who was hating our business, was saying bad things about our business. We engaged with that person, we had a dialogue, listened to them, and then now they're saying nice things about our business. Right. Kevin's tweeting on the hashtag. Excellent.
Oh, you're watching.
So social listings, anybody have any questions about social listing? It's kind of different than the other sort of social publishing, account management, and things that we do. But there's a lot of value that can be had. And I think, I think about it too. If you were, I might have said this example when I was in class before, but if you're at a cocktail party or whatever, a kegger, it's out, right? You don't just walk up to a bunch of people and start talking about yourself. I think when people start using social media companies particularly, they just start publishing. This is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is why you should like us. And so if you did that socially, people would think you were a jerk, right? So that's another part of social listings where it's actually understanding, figuring out who is important to you, who you want to reach, figuring out what they're talking about, what they're interested in, and then sharing that kind of stuff. So maybe people like to get a 6-pack of beer and go golfing. So you could talk about golfing, like, hey, next time you go golfing, make sure to stop by and grab something. Whatever it might be, but kind of trying to take part in the conversation rather than figuring out what they're interested in, talking about them, talking about what they're interested in, rather than just jumping in and talking about yourself all the time, because it's just as kind of annoying in social media as it is in real life. Customer service I've already covered a little bit. It's related to social listening. If you are working for somebody who has sort of big enough brand that people are complaining about it on social media, or you're going to deliver customer service on social media, it can really be a nice marketing tool. I know I had a bad experience with my AT&T service the other day. I was on the phone for 75 minutes trying to get something figured out. Meanwhile, I was tweeting the whole time, obviously, with our customer care team, and ended up being that social customer care team who actually ended up resolving the issue. And even though the phone service was, I was transferred 6 times, it was not a good experience. It was almost completely redeemed. I still wasn't too happy, but almost completely redeemed by the fact that the social care people were totally helpful and got the issue resolved. And in a lot of companies, it seems like that social care team has more authority to actually fix problems than a customer service person might. And I think people come to expect that level of service in social customer care. So if people are talking about your company, I think that we've gotten to a point technologically where there's an expectation that you're going to respond. So it's almost kind of a table stakes sort of thing where you have to be doing customer service at least a little bit. Then engaging with your audience, that sort of goes along with everything we've already talked about, but obviously not just publishing, listening to more content to the conversation going. I feel like particularly when we're talking about Twitter, like less and less you actually see conversations going on, and more often it's just like people publishing, here's an article. So people are sometimes a little bit surprised, and I think in a very positive way, when you respond to something that they put out there on social media. I had kind of a mountain bike, and I tweeted out like, hey, I had a great time on my bike. I was over in Black River Falls. And company responds like, hey, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing the pic. And like that totally like justified my like, oh, this is nice, And we had a little bit of a back and forth. They're like, oh, where do you like to ride? So that kind of engagement is, I think, really, really great. So just kind of pausing for a second. Does anyone have any sort of questions? Because that was most of what was, and those are kind of the main topics that were covered in the video. In the videos, I know a lot of you probably haven't had a chance to watch them yet, but any kind of general questions about social media while we're at this point? What's effective, or what's some hurdles that you might have to overcome, why you do it? You've already all gotten headphones, so I can't offer. 2 sets of headphones, if you ask me a question. No? All right. Next
How
slide.
did you have a bad time at the Aria?
How did they have a bad time at the Aria?
Yeah.
We were trying to check in, and our room wasn't ready.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, so it wasn't like a terrible time, but I just didn't really like the person notes. Like they were not helpful. If they would have said, hey, don't go have a seat, we'll get it ready for you really soon. It's just like, nope, it's not ready. It's like, oh, it's supposed to be ready.
Yeah.
And usually when you're in Las Vegas, there's like a high level of customer service. Like almost always, like everywhere you go, it's kind of like one of the things. And so it's just a little bit surprising to me. But then the people at Mandalay, they were really nice.
I have questions.
Yeah.
So I know one of the videos was about the reputation of social media and your content like that.
Yeah.
So like, what if a company already has like a bad rep with the social media, or they've had a bad instance? Like, well, I guess what would you do to kind of like, try and combat that, or try and get it back up to a good reputation? Like, just because you had the bad reputation with the one, I guess. So I guess the question is, how would you change your reputation on social media? Is that like a quick process, or does that take longer? Or
That's a good question. So I guess I can answer it either way, but is the bad reputation like that you have not been doing social media a bunch, or?
yeah, show us about that.
Okay. I think a little self-deprecation probably goes a long way in that, where you can make fun of yourself, like, we're on Facebook less than my grandma, but that's changing now, or something like that. My grandma's on social media all the time, but I think that you really go for that engagement, like trying to figure out, are there any actual negative things out there that are affecting your reputation, and addressing those very transparently and directly. There was a woman who worked for, I think, the Red Cross, and Red Cross had to have her humanity or something. And she, on her own personal, she thought was her own personal social media account, but was actually like the Red Cross account. She was going out to drink or whatever, so like getting slizzard. Yes, heard that. She was going out and getting drunk, and she accidentally tweeted on the Red Cross account, getting slizzard, which is like PR nightmare, right? But she was very, they were very open about it. Afterwards, they're like, sorry, I meant to tweet on my own account, tweeted on this account. And I think that they then, I had the story wrong, they did something where they like either partnered with a liquor brand or something, and the liquor brand then like donated water to the Red Cross. Like they basically owned it, right? They're like, we messed up. But then they were able to kind of turn it around by just being very open about it and kind of letting people know. So I think that transparency, a little self-deprecation, and then just turning it around. It's something that I think in social media you can do like fairly quickly if you just start doing things right. That reputation should change before too long. Now, if the company has a bad reputation, it's more difficult. Like Comcast, for example, the cable company, has a terrible. Everybody hates Comcast, right? But Comcast, are you guys familiar with Comcast Cares, their social care team? People love their social care team. Like, they're just super responsive. They help people out. They're funny. They do good stuff. And so, I guess the caveat is people still don't love Comcast. But it's not because of their social accounts. Their social accounts are probably the only thing that people like about them. So even if you have a brand that for other reasons people aren't really a fan of, you can at least have that be like the one bright spot in their reputation. Any other questions before we step over here?
Just bringing this up, Comcast Cares has 551,000 tweets.
Yeah. Yeah, they're super active.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I think just, like knock it out of the park with customer service. All right, go ahead. So, we talked about so far, and what I focused on mostly in my videos are branded accounts. So you have an account for Thomson Reuters, we have 153 different social media accounts around the world. Comcast Cares is a branded account. And I think that that's not going to change. We're always going to have these branded accounts. But I think that a lot of other things are changing. If I'm going to go to the next slide. One of the things that I think is the biggest opportunity and where social media is already heading in a lot of ways is sometimes called employee engagement, executive engagement. Not looking at just that branded account is the only way that you sort of interact with the world. But actually, when I was talking about do you follow brands on social media, which most people don't, how you interact with people, right? About personalities, tweet about elections, about their kids, whatever. And many times, if you can get the employees, the owner, executives, whoever, to be engaged in social media and sharing some of those messages, it can be as effective or sometimes more effective than what you can do with your brand accounts. If you go to the next slide, a couple things to sort of back that up. The numbers on the left are from a Nielsen poll, and they looked at how many, and ads aren't the perfect way to measure this, but looked at how many people trust ads on social networks and how many people actually take action based on the ads that they see on social networks. The trust number is 46. 56 seems like I'm not sure what they count as an action for an ad on social media because that's an insane conversion rate. But like half the people, right? Like kind of trust what brands say about social media, and that's just a function of marketing. Like if you're Nike and you're talking about Nike, maybe you can trust Nike, but if you're Comcast talking about Comcast, you're like, whatever. That's their marketing team, that's what they do. But if somebody that you know or somebody that you're engaged with in social media tells you something, that level of trust is like, not quite twice, but much, much higher. So people would rather, for the most part, hear from Carrie, if we can hear from Carrie, talk about reviews and how that kind of plays into it too. But recommendations from people that they know or people that they think, not think, but are real people, are a lot of times much more valuable. The other thing is that if you look at a medium-sized or large company and look at the social networks of all the people who work for the company, and take those in aggregate, it's generally about 10 times the size of following a branded account. So you have this opportunity, if you had theoretically everybody in your company using their social networks, and it's a little bit of a weird thing, right, to ask employees of a company to share things about a company, like, if you work for a bar, like a waitress, like, you want to share with all your friends every Friday, like, if you can make it fun for the employees to do, you can get a lot of value out of that. And another study that I didn't put up here, but most employees, this is more sort of corporate-sized companies, who actually engage in this sort of employee engagement, social sharing for their company, feel like they get a lot of professional development benefits out of it. I mean, they're the ones that their boss sees sharing the article on LinkedIn. They kind of know what's going on in the company. They become quasi-spokesperson for the company, which might raise some issues. But it can be a much more authentic and valuable way to reach out to to people is have either, this can be influencers as well, who don't work for the company, but to actually use individual people rather than just branded accounts when you're reaching out to people. So one thing I do for all of our sort of high-level executives is sit down and go through their LinkedIn profile, kind of line by line, usually not with them line by line, like with their communications person line by line, and then with them for like 5 minutes, and talk about like, oh, here's the 8 or 10 things that you can do in order to improve your LinkedIn profile. Like one thing on LinkedIn, I don't know if you guys are using LinkedIn much yet, but you can actually add media to your experience and your summary and your education. So you guys are working on websites for your clients, right? So in the education section where you say, hey, summa cum laude, EW Scout, digital communications, underneath that you can actually have a tile that would link out to the website of the client that you work for. And that adds a ton of like visual value to your LinkedIn profile, so it doesn't just look like your resume online. Also lets employers or potential employers know that like, oh, they've actually done something. That's pretty cool. It's a way to show off your work. So that's one of the things that I talk to them about is how to add some visual and media kind of tiles to their social media to their LinkedIn accounts. Because whenever I meet with somebody, and this is again probably a function of the fact that I work on social media all the time, I almost always look at their LinkedIn profile first. For our executives or for the owners of your companies, that's a big part of presence is the fact that like people are going to look at your owner social media profile or your executive social media profiles. So that it's important to have those kind of optimized. And going beyond that, they can start sharing things, being active, speaking at conferences, live tweeting conferences. It's hard to get people to go that far a lot of times. But it's, I think, a big part of where social media is headed is more in that leveraging individuals, whether they're influencers, executives, employees, brand ambassadors. I think that that's where we're going to see a lot of the value in social media over the next few years is a focus on that. And there's a lot of companies who are building tools to help make that easy. We use a tool called Gagalim, and what I do with that is mostly for our sales teams. We have, they sign up for Gagalim, associate their social media, which we use Twitter and LinkedIn accounts, and then I go in and actually create pre-populated posts for them, social posts. They can edit them, but they're all set to go. So all they have to do then is click to share them. They can even go through and like set up a whole week's worth and auto schedule. And that way they don't have to try to figure out what to share. I don't have to worry about the fact that they're sharing stuff they shouldn't share, which is another issue. And I can actually measure like the impact of what it's all done because it creates trackable links every time something's shared. So I can see which which posts that I've created have been shared the most often, like the ones that they've chosen to share. I can see how many people have clicked on those links. So when I look at Twitter, for example, I was looking at our metrics from last month, and if I look at our 2 biggest Twitter accounts, one has like 100,000 followers, one has 30,000 followers. I look at the number of clicks that those 2 accounts created. It's a little bit more, but close to the number that we're able to generate through the Skyline tool of salespeople who are actually sharing that content. So it's becoming, in aggregate, as important as some of our most highly performing branded channels. So as you guys are thinking about your digital communications and marketing future, that's one of the trends in social media that I think is going to be kind of a game changer. The other reason I think it's important, if you can go to the next one, is the Snitch. We use Snapchat. Okay. I barely use Snapchat. I kind of don't understand it, to be honest, which is a shame because a lot of people come and ask me to explain Snapchat to them. So this summer, and then we had some of our interns come explain to us exactly how Snapchat worked. Starting to feel a little bit old. It's like 10 or whatever, 7 years ago, I was trying to explain to everybody how Twitter works. Now I have to get the people who are 20 years into the media and explain to me how Snapchat works. Anyway, the point of this is I think that things like Snapchat that aren't the same kind of public publishing channels, so like Twitter, like very public, right? see. LinkedIn, a little bit different. Facebook, if you're a public channel, you're also just publishing to the world. But when I look at Snapchat and some of the other social media, either tools or just the way that people are using social media, direct messaging, more and more of it is that one-on-one communication. So you're not publishing out to the whole world to see. You're doing this one-on-one communication. And that's a really tricky thing for brands to figure out how to scale. Because it's not like we can just be a giant brand and share a video with everybody. Snapchat does have that functionality. But where the conversation's really happening are these one-on-one messaging apps. So it's not, I don't think that there's a perfect roadmap yet how companies can use those sorts of things. But if you're getting your employees engaged in using social media, being advocates for the company, if they sort of just see that as something that's good for them to do, it's good for the company and they like doing, then as social media evolves, I think, into more of a messaging platforms, you'll be better positioned because those people are having one-on-one conversations rather than conversations with brands. So that's another reason why I think using employees, getting your actual people engaged individually is really important. It's just because of this other trend in social media that's happening with more messaging apps. Does that kind of make sense? That's something I didn't talk about in the videos, but just a trend that I feel is really changing the way I think the employee engagement thing and the rise of the messaging apps, which sounds like a movie tagline, are kind of the two biggest trends that I kind of see going on right now. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
This doesn't relate to the current business I'm working with,
Yeah.
but I was an intern working at a different company, and our manager had all of us employees interacting on our social channels. But where do you kind of bridge the gap of it became like this hilarious joke to all of us that it was only us on there, that people are going to start to know who works for George Foreman Grills because nobody follows them but us, So
right. So I think you have to have some clear guidelines around it because of a few reasons. One has to, in my opinion, has to be voluntary. If you're asking people to use their own personal social media channels, like you can't, for a lot of reasons, say this is a requirement. You have to do this. I think you try to present it as something like this would be a good professional opportunity for you. It'll help business. It'll present you as one of the best tabletop grill cooks in the country. Whatever kind of thing you might be doing with the George Foreman grill. So that's one thing is I think that you have to it's like attraction, not forcing people to do it, like making people happen. Second thing is it's also the Federal Trade Commission has very strict guidelines about, like if I went and said Thomson Reuters is the best software information company, whatever, I would have to disclose, if I was saying that, I would have to disclose that like, hey, they pay me money, right? This is not, like I couldn't pass it off as being an objective statement. Same way if you're working with an influencer and you're paying them, which we do sometimes, like with pay bloggers or whatever, to go to a conference or review one of our products, and product review especially. If they then are talking about our product, they have to disclose the fact. So you'll see that sometimes. People do that in sort of creative ways. Like I might say, my employer is awesome because we have great work-life balance. So there's ways that you can kind of weave it into the message. For reviews, a lot of times they get the software for free or whatever, so they'll make that disclosure at the bottom. But the Federal Trade Commission is getting more and more serious about making sure that people do those disclosures. And so that's just a really important thing. And also, you should think about what if your customers figured out that this was all you guys?
Yeah, and I think the company I work for also owned Remington hair products, so we had a lot of guest bloggers that we paid.
Right.
And I think over the years we found out it was hurting us because people know when they go on YouTube that we paid them to do it when they're acknowledging us and they're tagging us and they're and all that.
Yeah.
And so I think they finally realized it was hurting us in a different way.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they did when I left, but that was like kind of where we were standing of how can we still do this without hurting it and getting less views because people know
that it's only
we're paying them to do it, editing their videos for them. They would send us this hour-long video and we would chop it down to 20 minutes, so it is kind of all of us doing it, but them on their YouTube account.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that we found we have to do when we do that is really give them, ask them to do it, give them whatever we're going to give them, and then say hands off. This has to be completely their view, which is a scary and dangerous thing to do.
Which makes sense though, because
Yeah.
it is.
But then the reviews that work the best for us are not those ones that are just like, everything is awesome, this is awesome, and this is awesome, and this is awesome.
Yeah.
It's the ones where it would be pretty cool if they could change this actually. If this worked this way, it would be a little bit better. I really like how this part works. And obviously before we pick somebody to do this, we talk to them to make sure that they're gonna like it. At least mostly, or we look at other things that they've done to figure out. We're selective in who we choose to do this. But I think after that, it's really important that whatever they say is objective. It's clear from how they're saying it. So it's almost better if they have just a couple of things. And ideally, there'll be things like, wow, well, our next release is actually going to be totally awesome to fix that problem that you talked about. So that's getting a little bit more tricky, but to have them be truly honest reviews, I think is really important. It is weird when you're trying to generate that stuff and you have employees talking about it, and you're the only ones there. At that point, if you're trying to get engagement, we've tried in the past. We've had some very successful ones. We've tried in the past to do some Twitter chats with some published books with some of our authors. And I look at the Twitter chat and it's like, oh man, we're the only people who are doing this. And so we kind of quit doing this. What we realized we had to do was get higher profile people, and then people would join in. But what we were trying to do just wasn't quite working. So I would say the key is though to make it as objective as possible, so people read it. They're like, oh, this is a legit.
Natural.
Yeah. Actually, that is a perfect. What's that?
The 2 thumbs up.
Oh, 2 thumbs up. You get.
So it's sort of a natural thing. You and I are the only ones that are sort of doing this UW social channel.
So I had scheduled a tweet before I left my house today. I scheduled a tweet to go out at 6:35 that said anybody who gives me 2 thumbs up gets a pair of headphones. You've all got that. But and just to encourage people to go in there and see what was going on. So I like the 2 thumbs up. That's awesome. But that actually plays perfectly into my placeholder here for Carrie. So Carrie works. You had Carrie in your
Yep, Carrie was here last week.
Okay. Well, then I don't need to give him any introduction.
All right, can we hear you now?
Long-time listener, first-time caller. How's this?
Okay, what I'm going to do.
He's playing Minecraft.
Carrie, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave. Let me save my